Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. As you can see, I made a lot of changes and even got a new studio. You also may have noticed the intro. This video is the first episode of a new format I called Quick Class. Here you won't just see a time-lapse like on the Speed Edit series, I also comment and explain some basic stuff of what I'm doing so that you can create a picture like this yourself. My idea for today's picture was actually pretty simple, even though it sounds a bit strange. A few weeks ago I became uncle. Last week I was asked to take some pictures of my niece, and have you ever noticed that babies really have amazing eyes? I mean, I've seen babies before of course, but they just looked like out of this world, but in a good and very cute way. So I had the idea to make a baby alien with like very big eyes, that is basically what I did. So let's get straight into it and see what I ended up with. First I tried what it would look like if I used a picture of an actual baby and maybe use something like Liquify to make it look more like an alien, but that didn't turn out that well. That's why I decided to just draw the alien by myself and started with a simple circle and a little bit of Liquify to make it look more alienish. I then made 2 more circles for the eyes and yeah. Looks amazing, I know, but trust me on this. I started drawing some shadows and highlights to add dimension and make it look less 2D, and that made it a whole lot better. Therefore I just used exposure adjustment layers, which I clipped to the one I drew the eyes on. You can do that by clicking on this button, by the way. That way it will only affect the layer underneath the current one. To add even more shine to the eyes, I used this image of a glass sphere I found. I clipped a black and white layer to it, set the blend mode to screen and masked everything out. Now it's time to add some shadows to the head. I did pretty much the same thing here and just used exposure adjustment layers. A whole lot of them. Don't worry about the mouth, he doesn't need one, but we'll come to that later. Let's move on with the spacesuit. We don't need the helmet, so let's mask it out. I have a way better solution for this anyway. A fish glass. Looks amazing, doesn't it? To connect our fish glass helmet to the suit, I'm gonna use this metal thing and a little bit of warp to make it fit. Since this spacesuit is way too big for a baby, I tried to make it a bit smaller, and it really took me a while to realize that this is not gonna work. I decided to use the arms from another image, and that worked pretty well. To make a smooth transition between the different body parts, I just used a very soft brush on their masks. I also masked out the middle of the fish glass before, so that we can now place the head in it. Since the helmet is still very round, I just used Liquify to match the shape of the head and started adding shadows to the spacesuit. I also tried out different colors, but decided to stick with the original one. As you have probably noticed, COVID is currently a thing and wearing a mask is extremely important. No excuses there. That's why I masked out this mask. Got it? I masked out the mask. What a terrible joke. And used, guess what again, Liquify to make it fit. Later I drew this thing, cause baby aliens obviously have that, you know, and used this texture again, which I set on overlay like I mostly do. Even though it's just a very small detail that most probably won't even notice, I also drew this metal ring and therefore used a brushed metal texture. I then added some shadows and highlights of course and tried out different colors for the alien. It's time to build the environment. Therefore, I used this image of the moon and a toy rocket. Of course, I masked everything out again and used a solid color layer and the same glass sphere as before to make the window of the rocket. To get rid of the plastic look, I used my metal texture again and of course liquify to get the shape right. I flipped the rocket because in this picture the light comes from the right side and the back, and placed it on the moon together with the alien and changed the red colors to blue by using a hue saturation layer. The only thing missing now were the shadows, of course. So I made some exposure adjustment layers again, a lot of them. I apologize for the light stretch on the left and right side of the screen record, by the way. I didn't notice I wasn't recording in the right format and had to decide between this stretch or some not so nice looking black bars, but I think it's not that big of a deal. For some rocks in the background I found this image. Since they will be blurred anyway, the mask doesn't need to be that accurate. And guess what comes next? Shadows. Can you already see a pattern behind this extremely complicated work? I put the earth in the background and used multiple solid color layers, which I set on soft light, screen or linear dodge to add some glow, and exposure adjustment layers for the shadows, as always. I later noticed there was an issue with the layer mask of the right arm of the alien, and since I can't live with that, I needed to fix it. No problem, because I converted the alien group to a smart object, and you can always double click on smart objects to open them up in a separate window and make adjustments to them afterwards. Just save when you're done and it will automatically apply the changes you've made to the one you clicked on. When I came back to the project, I realized how shitty the earth looked, so I made it again, but this time much better and more epic. Oh, and almost forgot to say, I also drew this very bright shine on the edge, and that definitely makes a big difference. The rocks I used have a lot of hard edges. To make them look more realistic, I created another solid color layer and used Blend If to apply it only to the bright areas. You can do that by just double clicking on the right side of a layer and move around the sliders. I also tried to add the sun, but I didn't really like it. Instead I used this lens flare and that really looked epic. At the end I used tilt shift and Gaussian blur to blur the back and foreground and added some particles to give it a more cinematic look. And because there's a lot of dust on the moon, I painted some dust like fog using solid color layers, and I also used solid color layers to add some glow behind the objects. Finally, I added more blue to the highlights with the help of Blend If again, and used the camera raw filter, which usually tends to double any picture's legitness level, and yeah, that's it. So, this is how I made this picture. I hope you enjoyed watching and maybe learned something new. How do you like Quick Class? Let me know in the comments, and also subscribe if you want to help this channel grow. It would really mean a lot to me. That's it for today, guys. See you on the next episode and have a good one.